Okay, I'm here today. This is the topic of the day, hacking the female body. And to start off with, I have constantly been wondering why it is that we can put a man on the moon and yet we have not been able to come up with a permanent cure for menstrual cramps. And that's the starting point, or at least one of the starting points. So my name is Sofia Hellsten. I work with business development and innovation and making waves here in Stockholm. And before that, I spent quite some time at Stockholm School of Economics studying how markets, consumers, and businesses work. And in short, I want more fantastic and smart products that delights the lives of the female sex. And therefore, I'm here to talk about the innovation for the female body. Or more specifically, the needs of the female body. Before I get going, I just want to set the scene so that we all speak the same language. Going forward, when I talk about innovation, that is the idea and development of new products and services. How these are later on marketed or sold, it's a very interesting story, but not something that I will be covering today. And secondly, when I talk about women or females, I'm referring to someone with double X chromosomes, a human with a vagina, breast, a uterus, etc. Not what gender you may or may not identify with. And thirdly, I'm no medical health professional, I'm no scientist, I'm not a specialist in female health. However, I do know innovation and I have a vagina. So, so let's get started. These are, I think this number should be updated because this has increased. But these are how many women there are in the world today. 3.7 billion people of the female sex. They make up around 40% of the global workforce. And this is a number that is increasing by the day. And what is also growing is their purchasing power. Today, they control more than 20 trillion US dollars in annual consumer spending. This might be a hard number to grasp, but it's roughly, it's roughly double the GDP of China. So it's quite a lot of money. Even so, and even the remarkable strides we've made during the past century within the social position of women, the position of women in business, etc., there is still the fact that the women seems to be undervalued in the marketplace. There was a study conducted by HBR that concluded that women actually feel underserved. They feel that products and services are not fulfilling the needs that they have. Because they have not been designed to adhere to their needs. I'll give you a few examples so you know what I'm talking about. Because there is a lot of times that the market spits out something that you might consider more of a joke than an actual product, such as the pink beer for women. We also have the pen for her. And lastly, why not a car specifically made for women? And this is a car with, eyeliner headlights. You have like jewelry, bag hook, etc., etc. Also launched at a fashion show. So very important. This is a strategy commonly or often known as the shrink it and pink it strategy, where you take an otherwise gender-neutral product. You're thinking, how can we make this for a female target group? Well, you make it smaller and you make it pink. You might argue, well, this doesn't really harm anyone, so why even bother discussing it? But let's then talk about something that's a little bit more scary, actually. This is a good old car. It's actually designed to protect men and not women. Women are at 47% higher risk of a serious car seatbelt injury when in a car accident. And this is because women, they tend to have lighter bodies, maybe they are often shorter, and also their bodies are shaped differently. And it wasn't until 2009 that the development, or the start of the development, of a female crash dummy was put into motion. So we still don't have one that's really good. I know I read last week, or a few weeks ago, there is a Swedish scientist. She's been working on this for a long time, and she's just been starting to test her dummy in Japan. It's still not on the market. So you've been testing cars with only male crash dummies since forever. So that's like the scary the scary part. Also talking about health. You all know this company. Maybe you've even used the app. In 2014, Apple launched their Health Kit app with quite some buzz. This was an app that was said to be able to measure almost anything with regards to your health. Everything from your sodium intake to your movements, to your sleep, to your nutritional levels, etc., etc. However, they forgot to include one thing. This. So I've lived almost 30 years. I've never ever felt the need to track my sodium levels or my sodium intake. However, it would be really nice to know when to have my menstrual cup ready. But then again, Health Kit was not designed specifically for women either, nor was the car. It was, designed for the whole population, right? So maybe it's not the best example. But let's then look at something that's actually designed specifically for a need that only females have, or only women have. Namely, products for menstrual care. Bear with me, we'll do a little history lesson here, but just so you know what's happened during the past 2 centuries. So, in the 1850s, we get the sanitary apron, or the first sanitary apron was on the marketplace. So the sanitary apron was like a rubber apron that you put between your skirt and your underwear so that you wouldn't bleed through and destroy your clothes, basically. Very nice. Then in the end of the 18th, or at the end of the century, we get Lister towels. So the first sanitary towels are put on the mass market. Then in the 20s, we get an improved version of the pads and also a menstrual belt to keep them in place. And then, in the beginning of the 30s, we get the first tampon as we know it today. And a little later on, she introduces the menstrual cup, Leona Chalmers. And then we fast forward to the 60s, 70s. We get an improvement to the pad because you no longer need the belt because there's an adhesive strip, so you can glue it to your panties. And that's basically it. So on a mass market scale, there have been 3 innovations for menstrual care over the past 2 centuries. So 3 innovations in 200 years. Oh, well, I don't know if I would include the adhesive strip as an innovation, but maybe I'm maybe I'm too yeah. Anyways, not much has happened. So even in this market, it is highly female. It's targeted towards the female body. We've seen 3 innovations in 200 years. And why is this the case, you might wonder? Well, I believe that some of it has to do that we have been, or companies in general, are not super good at putting their consumers at the center. And many companies are focusing on their assets and how to best improve them rather than focusing on the real needs for the consumer. Maybe I, as a woman, I don't need longer wings or an adhesive strip on my pad. Maybe I don't even want to change my menstrual protection at all. Maybe that's the problem. So putting the user at the center is the fundamentals of successful innovation. But then maybe it's that we haven't understood the woman. Maybe that's why. And why is it that we haven't understood what the woman or the women of the world needs? Partly, of course, it's because there's been a taboo surrounding the female body in the world. And that has, of course, made it hard to talk about the needs of female hygiene or when I'm breastfeeding or whatever that might be. But then, that's one part of it. There's also the fact that very few women have the possibility or have had the possibility to influence decisions as where to money should be spent. And that is in general when it comes to new products or product innovation. So we can't really talk about innovation for the female body if we don't mention power structures. These are some of the most influential companies or prominent brands within the female hygiene market. Brands that are actually dedicated to serving the female body. And this is what the power structure looks like in these companies. So we have around or less than 30% women across both executive teams and boards in all of these companies. That means that we have mostly men setting the agenda and making the really big decisions. On top of that, within the female health industry, less than 2% of sales is spent on research and development. And then you might get asked, what is the result? Well, the result is an industry filled with men making unqualified guesses. But we all know it's hard to teach old dogs new tricks, right? So maybe women of the world should put their trust in someone else, someone starting from scratch. But with new ideas, new businesses comes the need of new money or raising capital externally. So you need to convince a venture capitalist or the likes that your idea is kick-ass. And fact is that only 7% of the top venture capitalist partners at the top venture capitalist firms are women. So imagine you have this product or this service. It's specifically designed for the needs of the female body. And at the other side of the table, you have a sea of men. And you're going to convince them that your idea is kick-ass. It's kind of like pitching in Swedish to a Chinese investment board. So you're not really at an advantage. So that's one part. The other part is that female and male entrepreneurs, they are perceived or talked about differently. There was a recent study actually conducted in Sweden that concluded that when venture capitalists talk about female versus male entrepreneurs, females, they are talked about as young and promising, and their female counterpart is talked about or perceived as young but inexperienced. And this, of course, affects the capital they receive and also the rejection rate. Another study concluded that, or looked at how female and male entrepreneurs are asked questions differently when they're pitching or when they're presenting their ideas. Males, they tend to get questions that allows them to talk about the gains of their fantastic idea, whereas women get questions regarding the potential losses, so they have to defend the potential losses of their idea. I'll give you an example regarding the market. So a man would get the question, do you think your target market is a growing one? Of course, you answer, right? A woman would get the answer, is this a defendable business wherein other people can't come into the space and take a share? Of course, you're likely to seem much more promising if you get to talk about the potentials of your fantastic idea, rather than having to defend it. And this, of course, in turn affects capital received. In this study, when you got questions regarding the gains of your idea, you received an average 5 times more capital. So, you could argue, well, maybe male entrepreneurs perform better. Maybe this is fair because, like, that's how the market works, right? The one that performs the best gets the most money, right? Which is not really true, because around on average, founding teams with a female member or a female in the lead, they perform 63% better than all male counterparts. So actually, we could conclude that VCs around the world are missing out on really great potential because they're not investing in the ones that gives the best give them the most money back, right? And actually, who could be better suited to have decisive power when it comes to innovations for the female bodies than those who actually have one? At least I believe there is a great opportunity to beat that 2% R&D that we talked about earlier. You could also ask, why am I standing here now? Why not 10 years ago talking about this? Well, partly because 10 years ago I was quite young, but also because the taboos around the female body is starting to dissolve. Women are breaking free from norms and taking control in many aspects, and we start seeing things like this. We see menstrual, or not menstrual, but we see at least blood in female sanitary ads. We see breast pumping on TV shows. We see female genitalia on album covers, and also we get very large YouTubers that releases books on menstruation, which is not only released in Sweden or the Nordics, but in America and South Korea. We see uproars on social media when images like this one is being banned by Instagram. And we see it starting to influence the political debate. And a problem not talked about will never be solved. So that's why this is important, because when you start talking about a problem, you can really give room or set the scene for great innovations and new ideas. So maybe it's not very strange that we haven't seen a lot of innovations regarding this for the past 200 years, because we haven't really been talking about the problem, or we haven't been allowed to talk about the problem. But now, given that we are actually for real have begun to talk about the needs of the female body much more openly, there is a whole new industry emerging, namely the femtech industry. So this is an industry filled with menstrual care alternatives, period trackers, prescription models for the pill, etc., etc. And I will go through a few examples that I find are maybe extra interesting or worth mentioning at least. Did you know that bladder control issues among women are more common than hay fever? This was something that LV set out to try to change. So this is a gamified Kegel exercise app and egg. So it's a smart Kegel egg that you use to train your pelvic floor. And it comes complete with a gamified app so that you go up levels and improve your strength, your pelvic strength. And this company, they turned profit 6 months after they started their sales start. And they reported in 2016 $1 million in revenue from direct sales, and that's excluding Amazon. So, it's that number is probably a lot higher. Then there's this company. I think a lot of you might have come across this. Thinx. They make menstrual panties, like panties that collect your menstrual blood. So you don't need a tampon, you don't need a pad or a menstrual cup or whatever. Like the panty itself collects it. You put it in the washer and then you use it again. They were named one of Time Magazine's 25 Best Innovations of 2015 and reported more than $10 million revenue within 1 year from launch. Then we have Maven Clinic. So this is kind of like Kry, but specifically designed for women. So it's a digital health service where you can meet doctors, nurse practitioners, psychiatrists, or other specialists in female health. And they have received around $20 million in funding and have more than 100,000 users today. And they are also being used by some of the Fortune 500 companies as a benefit to their female employees. So it's a great service. And you remember Lena Dunham? This is reality. This is usually what breast pumping looks like. Not very comfortable, very loud, and you need to be in one place. You could carry it around, but it's not super convenient. Willow set out to try to change this. It's a wearable breast pump, and wearable as in also digitized, analyzing the contents of the breast milk, and it fits inside your bra, so you can walk around, do whatever you like, and still like breast pump. They're not at the market yet, but they were named Best of CES by both Engadget and the Wall Street Journal. So I'm looking forward to see what happens when they actually release their product to the market. And then lastly, a lot of you might even use this, no matter if you're a man or a woman. It's the menstrual tracking app Clue, where you can track your period, your symptoms, etc., etc. You can even invite your partner so that he or she can follow your period with you, so you know where you're at in the cycle. They have more than 5 million users globally, and this is a quite old number. They haven't released any new numbers yet, so I'm assuming it's much larger today. And actually, I think it was yesterday I read in the news that Swedish Natural Cycles received another round of funding. I don't remember the exact amount now, but that's the Swedish counterpart. You can say whatever you want about these apps as in preventive purposes or etc. But it's actually they're trying to do something for women, which I think is really, really good. I at least love mine. So these are just a few examples. The whole industry is estimated at $200 billion. So there is more room to, explore. And why I wanted to mention these few examples is because they are actually trying to challenge the incumbents in delivering value in a new way, or maybe in a better way than the current marketplace or the historical marketplace has been doing. And some of them, they even live up to the fundamentals of disruptive innovation. That is, you identify an underserved target audience, well, women at large. You create a new offering based on their needs, and then you deliver that value in a whole new way. So you're not, for example, things. You're not giving them longer wings, you're removing the pad altogether, because that was maybe an issue amongst women, or at least I felt that. And if you do this, there is a great chance, according to innovation theory, that in the long run you will outperform the incumbents. Kind of similar to what Netflix did to Blockbuster. So maybe SET and Procter & Gamble should, maybe I don't know if someone from there is here today, but try to think outside the box, so to speak. Then who is going to lead the change? Who is going to capture this market, and who is going to be a part of changing this? Well, I wouldn't be standing here if I didn't think some of you could be part of this. So before I finish off, I want to leave you with a few notes to bring home, kind of. Firstly, if you work for a company that is actually supplying products or services specifically for the female body, I urge you to focus on the user needs. Talk to people, talk to women, study them in a scientific way in terms of what does our everyday look like? Where are the issues, etc., etc. And if you, during that process, realize that, well, what we've been doing is actually not fulfilling the needs that women have, well, then you go back to the drawing board and you start from scratch, because that's the only way we can change this. And a lot of, incumbents, they do have money to do this, so that's something that I want to point out. Secondly, if you work for a company that's not primarily targeting the female body, I urge you to think outside the box. Let's take H&M for an example. H&M, they sell clothes. They sell clothes both to men and to women. They sell underwear to women. Is there some way that the underwear that H&M sells could actually improve the lives of women more than, being underwear? I'm sure there are possibilities there. Thirdly, if you're an investor, please, please don't be biased. I know it's hard. It's hard for men. It's hard for women. But it's really good to keep it at the back of your mind that, okay, I am biased by how our society is formed. So let's try to work against that. And thirdly, maybe you're like me. Maybe you don't fall into any of the earlier categories. What can you do? Well, first of all, as I mentioned, you can talk about the problem, because that's the starting point. Talk about what you feel are issues in your life with regards to how your body is shaped and how your body works. Because then maybe someone hears that and, okay, I had an idea, so maybe it's not only I that had this problem, and like the ball starts rolling. Secondly, if you find something at the market that is fulfilling your needs better than earlier products, go buy it. Vote with your wallet, because that's a really strong power that we as consumers have. And then thirdly, if you're like, okay, I'm sick of this, there's nothing out there that fits me or fits my needs, go and invent it. Make it happen, because there is money to be earned and there is money to be captured here. And there is great potential, because the target group is huge. It's half of the world's population, guys. Half of the world's population. Just saying it again. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's about it for that. And to sum up, since forever we have had products and services being designed by men for men, or best case scenario, by men for women. And business in this area has been lagging behind, not fulfilling the actual needs of real women. However, this increasingly open discussion around the female body has opened up new possibilities for innovations and ideas and opportunities. So this underserved market, it serves a really great playground for new investments, but this is as long as we actually put the women at the center, both in terms of maybe who actually is in charge of the money and where we should spend that money, but also bringing the ideas to life. Yeah, that's what I had, so thank you.